very pleased to be saying that Tanzania is back from our point of view, and the fact that banks are willing to bank Tanzania, certainly the ones that are in our data room, I think demonstrates the outlook there is a good one for mining.
Hello to those of you joining us here on the Assay TV, where today I am joined by Phil Hoskins, Managing Director of Evolution Energy Minerals. Evolution Energy Minerals are an ASX-listed company that are focused on the exploration of graphite and the advancement of their flagship Chilalo project located in southern Tanzania. So welcome, Phil. Thank you for joining us on the Assay TV today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Katie.
So just to kick things off, can you please introduce the company to us and its flagship project?
Yeah, absolutely. The company's Evolution Energy Minerals Limited, listed on the ASX. Our only project is the Chilalo graphite project in Tanzania. It's a coarse flake graphite project, which drives high margins, and it's also very low capex. We're also looking to pursue downstream processing in the US of our fine flake graphite. So development ready following the recent signing of our framework agreement with the Tanzanian Government and updated DFS, and pursuing project financing through 2023.
Excellent. So you've just mentioned the Tanzanian Government signing. Can we get some more detail about that, please? I know that happened very recently.
Absolutely. I only just got back from Tanzania. We signed it on Monday. It's something Tanzania from sort of 2017 through to 2020 was it wasn't the easiest place to do business as a mining company. The then government under President Magufuli introduced a number of changes to mining legislation, and I guess under the new president's leadership, there's been changes required, or at least confirmations required by mining investors to get the fiscal stability and certainty required to make a major investment in the country. And that's basically culminated in the signing of these framework agreements, and ourselves and two other ASX listed companies signed on Monday. And I guess it's the critical regulatory piece that the banks that are looking to do the debt for our project have been waiting for.
So you're saying that Tanzania is a bit more of a smoother country to operate in now?
Absolutely. It always, pre-2017, it was one of the best places in Africa, established mining jurisdiction, one of the largest gold producers in Africa. It obviously went through a bumpy ride that most investors will be familiar with, but very pleased to be saying that Tanzania is back from our point of view, and the fact that banks are willing to bank Tanzania, certainly the ones that are in our data room, I think demonstrates that the outlook there is a good one for mining.
I think as well, the cooperation of the government is often a reflection of a company's ESG practices. Obviously, they're very important to get a project off the ground. So can you share some of Evolution's ESG practices with us and objectives?
Yeah, absolutely. So our maiden sustainability report will be coming out in the next few weeks, which will outline a lot of that. But I guess doing things the right way is part of our DNA, and our largest shareholder is an ESG fund out of the UK, who has quite stringent conditions around our approach. And as we've been putting a number of those measures in place, I guess from an environmental point of view, that's culminated in a massive reduction in our carbon footprint through this updated definitive feasibility study, brought about by changes in the power generation, also introducing quite a novel waste heat recovery system, where we recover the heat from the power plant to use it to dry out our graphite. So yeah, the carbon footprint's on its way down. Our relocation action plan was signed off by the Chief Government Valuer and done so in accordance with IFC standards. So full livelihood restoration, and we're now making the plans to commence that relocation through this year, which is one of the critical path items of the project. And architect design houses and proper livelihood restoration. So that work's been done to a high degree, and And all of this, I guess, independently in the world where there is greenwashing around. We've committed to a group called Digby, who independently assess companies' ESG credentials, and I think we were one of the first to sign up probably 15 months ago, and originally got a B rating. That's been upgraded to a triple B rating, which for a Tanzanian graphite project in development is close to as good as you can get. And really the only way to improve from here is to carry out some of these plans that we have. So we're really looking forward to doing that.
Excellent. And you mentioned the DFS. Obviously that was updated in March, I believe. Can you give us some more details to that? Some numbers perhaps from the DFS?
Yeah, absolutely. The scope, we originally did a DFS in 2020. The fact that we're now pursuing project financing and it had been 3 years, you have to update these things given we've been in a pretty inflationary environment. So costs have obviously been moving, but we're really pleased with the economics, and they continue to paint us as one of the standout development ready graphite projects. The capital cost is $120 million US, which is relatively cheap compared to other development ready graphite projects. An NPV of $330 million over a 17-year mine life. The high margins really driven by that world-leading coarse flake graphite, and coarse flake graphite is worth more than fine flake graphite. That's a fundamental premise, which means that we will always be one of the highest margin graphite companies. And that really underpins the economics. We're, I guess, really happy to keep the operating costs where they were and from the previous study, and a lot of that came down to the hard work by the team, changing that power generation to solar compared to more expensive diesel, and a number of those things. So I think really good result. As I said, continues to paint us as a standout development ready graphite option, and should also point out that there are real world graphite assumptions in there, having the study being compiled by Michael Bourguignon, our technical director, who was responsible for building Syra's Balama graphite project. So the only guy outside China with that real graphite development expertise, and he's the one having the say so on the numbers for our project.
So you've updated the DFS. What's next at Chilalo? What's the next steps?
Yeah, I guess on the ground, there's a number of capital light activities that represent the critical path, that the relocation of affected individuals, which under IFC standards, you're required to give 6 months notice. And so we're intending to give that notice in the near future, commencing town planning and other, that sounds like a major thing, town planning, but there's only a couple of hundred, like 200 affected people here. So commencing those activities, which, as I said, are light on expenditure, looking to commence detailed design, the engineering in the near future. So moving ahead with those activities while we're working on the project financing, and very pleased to say there's numerous expressions of interest from Western banks, African banks, multilateral institutions, EV-focused funds in the financing for this project. We've appointed or soon to appoint an independent technical engineer to review our feasibility study on behalf of those financiers, and in May we'll be hosting a site visit for a number of those groups as we I guess move towards the project financing, which is the critical part for us to achieve this year.
Right, and let's look at the broader picture. Obviously, we're entering into the green revolution, and we're amidst a super cycle. How do you see graphite being affected, graphite demand? Do you see it going up and up and up? Or
of course, the complete hockey stick, which it makes sense because graphite is the only other commodity in every battery chemistry other than lithium. So we know what's happened to lithium. And there's up to 10 times more graphite than lithium in every lithium-ion battery. And so fundamentally, just through sheer weight of numbers, the demand's going to continue. Investors will likely be aware that there are two types of graphite that go into an anode, and they tend to get blended. It's not one or the other. You've got natural spherical graphite, or you've got synthetic graphite. And so I don't think either is a threat to the other. They're always going to exist and provide different qualities into the battery. But longer term, natural is, I think, preferred over synthetic because of the much lower carbon footprint compared to the very high carbon footprint of synthetic. So there's no doubt that the graphite's going places. I think the underinvestment in flake graphite supply and in downstream anode production is going to mean that I think prices in the next sort of 1 to 2 years will go up reasonably significantly. And I think the other big thematic that's maybe somewhat lost on the investment community is the whole ex-China critical mineral supply movement. And it's I think it's going to be the story of this decade in the minerals industry to have countries like the US and Europe as well with their Critical Mineral Act so concerned about securing these critical minerals that are going to drive their decarbonisation objectives and not be so reliant on China. And you're trying to build entire industries from scratch. And I think it bodes really well for, I guess, Western graphite supply like ours, and also seeking to further process that into downstream anode products on US soil, which is another strategy of ours.
It's true. We're seeing a lot of move towards deglobalization of the supply chains at the moment, aren't we? It's affecting a lot of minerals, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. Regionalisation of these hubs around where the end markets are, or around where the minerals are produced. So yeah, it's probably a shame for the global market, but it's a sign of the times with some of the geopolitical tensions that are out there.
Exactly. So just to round things up, can we get a few milestones for investors to look out for in the coming months?
Yep, absolutely. So there'll be an update on the project financing itself. We've got drill results coming out from a program that we conducted towards the end of last year, which will really be demonstrating scale potential. It's not like we need additional resources for the financing. And I think critically we'll be moving ahead in leaps and bounds with our downstream strategy and various appointments of key people to drive that strategy, and also advancing test work and partnership discussions, which I think are the critical things that can move the needle, are the partnership discussions. And of the development ready graphite companies, we are the only one that hasn't really buddied up, whether that's our fine flake or the downstream processed spherical graphite. And I think that really is strategic leverage for us as we move into partner discussions. And I think that can really help us with the overall financing for the project as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It certainly sounds like an exciting time for Evolution. And then we hope to catch up again soon with more news flow.
Sounds good. Thanks for your time, Katie.